what's the biggest problem with modern TV? Is it the terrible writing, the constant political messaging, the lack of creativity? All of those are certainly issues, but there's one major change that's quietly done more damage than most people realize: the reduction of episode counts. Back in the 1960s, TV seasons were massive. Shows like Doctor Who and Lost in Space had over 40 episodes per season. By the 1970s, Doctor Who dropped to 24 episodes, aligning more with American shows that typically had 22 to 26 episodes per season. This continued all the way through to the early 2010s, with most long-running series sticking to that format. The only exception was Doctor Who in the late 80s, which dropped to a pitiful 14 episodes, coinciding with the show's decline at the BBC. But now, we're lucky if a series gets 10 episodes, and some don't even manage that. The industry argues that shorter seasons mean better quality, but in reality all it's done is ruin pacing, kill off character development, and make TV feel less like a regular event and more like a short-lived, overpriced distraction. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Damon, and today we're looking at how reducing episode counts has slowly but surely destroyed television as we knew it. Some shows have managed to make shorter seasons work, but those were built for that format. The BBC in particular was great at this. Red Dwarf, for example, thrived despite having just 6 episodes per season. A great example of this kind of storytelling is Fathers and Sons, an episode that is brilliant in its simplicity. Lister, knowing exactly how he'd react to being told what to do, leaves himself a drunken video message to set himself straight before he can make another terrible decision. And because it's him, he knows precisely how to manipulate himself into taking his own advice. On the other hand, Timewave is a perfect example of how Red Dwarf can also stumble, but in a way that unintentionally reflects the world today. The entire episode revolves around a society where nobody is allowed to criticize anyone else because it might hurt their feelings. Sound familiar? It's modern-day outrage culture wrapped up in Red Dwarf's typical ridiculousness. The fact that a silly sci-fi sitcom managed to predict how people today would take offense at the slightest thing just shows how on point Red Dwarf could be when it wanted to. But here's the thing. Would Red Dwarf even be possible in today's TV landscape? I doubt it. There'd be endless studio interference, demands for longer story arcs, a checklist of required political messages, and of course the dreaded gritty reboot approach where everything has to be serious and realistic. It's probably the reason we haven't heard anything since the Promised Land feature-length episode. The problem is that modern TV thinks less is more. But is it? Look at how many shows have suffered from stretched-out plodding storytelling because they only have 6 or 8 episodes to work with. Instead of episodic adventures or multi-layered subplots, we get one single storyline painfully dragged out, with filler masquerading as character depth and endless setup with no payoff. It's why so many modern shows feel like a chore to get through. TV used to be something you could invest in for the long haul. You got to know the characters because you spent time with them week after week. Now, a season barely lasts 2 months before it's over and forgotten. Audiences don't get hooked anymore because there's nothing to latch on to. Shows don't have time to breathe. And when they do, it's because they're dragging their feet rather than naturally developing the story. And for what? Streaming services trying to cut costs? Studios pretending they're making higher quality content when they're really just cutting corners. The reality is that TV isn't better now, it's just more disposable, and as we've seen, that's driving audiences away. At the end of the day, reducing episode counts hasn't improved television, it's gutted it. Shows have lost the ability to tell engaging, long-form stories. Characters don't have enough screen time to truly develop, and worst of all, audiences are checking out. Maybe instead of cutting episodes, TV networks should try making shows that are actually worth watching again. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell like the video. And leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.